What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's Game Week 6 captaincy time. I'm releasing this video a day earlier than I did last week because the deadline's on Friday. If we do it on Friday, there won't be enough time to watch it, yada, yada, yada. So it's coming out on Thursday this week. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming tonight, but I definitely will be doing the deadline stream before the 6:30 deadline on Friday. So keep an eye out for that. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you're enjoying these captaincy videos. I'm going to go through the main captaincy contenders and then talk through the other matches that I think are worth at least mentioning at the end of the video as well. So let's jump into the first match. So first up, let's talk about West Ham versus Man City. And I feel like this fixture has been a little bit forgotten about in some cases. Everyone looking towards Kane and Son and Salah and maybe even Mane, and not really considering too many options from the Man City game against West Ham. Obviously, West Ham defensively, everyone was saying they were quite good, and then Spurs scored 3 passes in like 20 minutes. To be fair, they did well for the rest of the game, but ultimately this has to be a good fixture for Man City. Most fixtures are good for Man City, right? So let's talk about all the players as we go through. So Sergio Aguero, right? Is he fully fit? Was he rushed back because they didn't have Jesus? He's played 2 games now. The only thing with him is, and my issue right now of bringing him in and maybe even captaining him, is how many minutes is he going to get in a game, right? Even if he starts, you're probably looking at 60 to 70 minutes max. Of course, he can do damage in that time. No one is saying he can. But having your minutes managed is frustrating. You know that Son and Kane are probably going to get 80 to 90 minutes. Same for Salah or Mane. It's just one concern with Aguero until he's up to full match fitness. Maybe he already is, but even if he was, Pep is still going to take him off early where possible, right? So if they're 2-3-0 up or whatever it might be, you'd say that Aguero is probably going to get the chop because they need to keep him fresh and fit for all the other games they've got until Jesus is back. And to be honest, let's just talk about injuries because Pep was saying some weeks for De Bruyne. Now there's a chance he perhaps starts this week. We just don't know yet. Then Jesus is out for months. I think he's even back training now as well, which doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be back into the team anytime soon. But suddenly all these players that Pep was saying were going to be out for ages, or some weeks, now might be back a little bit sooner. So that's something to keep an eye on. The De Bruyne thing does worry me a little bit because if he's not back, I think it just makes Man City an overall worse team. Not they're a bad team. They're still going to have enough to cope with playing against West Ham. In terms of captaining players from that fixture, you'd want to see De Bruyne back. And maybe when we see the press conference and stuff from Pep on Friday, if we get any news. The problem with Pep's press conference is a lot of time there's embargoed quotes. And if they're not coming out till 10:30 on a Friday or Saturday night, you're not going to see that before the deadline. So that's my only worry with captaining anyone from Man City. And like I said earlier, there was a lot of talk about how good West Ham are defensively. Spurs were able to put 3 past them. It's what happens when you have small sample sizes, right? It's dangerous to take too many conclusions from them. West Ham is still a good fixture for good teams like Spurs, like Man City, like Liverpool as well. So I do think this is a good fixture. Sterling's probably the other one as well to consider, of course. I think his underlying numbers aren't looking great. To be fair, Man City's aren't looking great in comparison to where they normally are. But if De Bruyne is back, it's going to be the first time that De Bruyne, Aguero and Sterling are all on the pitch. We know that Mahrez and Foden are fit. They're pretty much going to have a first choice 11 if De Bruyne is able to make that game. And suddenly it makes Sterling a very, very good proposition and a big differential as well. Most of the captains are going to be on the players that I mentioned, Kane, Son, Mane and Salah as well. But I do think Sterling's a good pick for this. So keep an eye out on what De Bruyne, or what happens with De Bruyne, or what Pep says about him in the press conference. And if he's kind of positive about him playing potentially in this match, and you've got Sterling, you want to go a little bit different, perhaps he's the one to do. So I think Salah versus Mane is actually quite close this week, interestingly enough. And I've looked at the kind of underlying numbers rather than how many FPL points they've scored. And expected goal involvement was very close between them. Salah is just about nudging it, but he has played more minutes. But interestingly, a lot of Salah's expected goal involvement is being made up from expected assists rather than expected goals. Mane's the opposite, so most of his is coming from expected goals, and obviously goals are worth more, as we all know, in FPL. So I actually think if you look at the numbers, and to be fair, even if you look at the eye test, right, I'm not saying Salah has played bad, but Mane has looked very, very good again. A lot of people would even say he's the better player out of the two. In fact, let me know in the comments below. Forget FPL, from a footballing perspective, who is the better player, Mane or Salah, right? We're taking FPL out of it, but getting back to FPL, Mane could be a shout this week, right? In terms of goal threat from open play, he looks potentially like the better option. And in a week where things are pretty close, if you own both of them, you wanted to go a bit different. Maybe Mane is the one. We know Salah's got penalties, right? Any team or any player that's got penalties, they can easily top up their score very easily if they get the odd, dodgy penalty here or there. Like even if it's 1 penalty, 2 penalties, whatever. Suddenly they got some free, easy points. And we know that with Salah. But if you take that out of the equation because they can't be relied on, I actually think that Mane looks pretty good in this fixture. Now, overall, Sheffield United as a fixture last year wouldn't necessarily have targeted it for captaincy. And to be fair, their expected goals conceded is pretty good this year. I know they're not looking like it. They haven't really kept too many clean sheets already, but the expected goals conceded is looking good. But even when I look at the teams they face, right, Arsenal and Wolves are in there, but neither of those two sides are scoring a lot of goals so far. So the 5 teams they've played, Wolves, Villa, Leeds, Arsenal, Fulham. Okay, Villa obviously put 7 past Liverpool. Leeds also put 3 past Liverpool. But overall, those 5 teams are not massively heavy scoring. So to have a pretty decent expected goals conceded stat is not out of this question. But I think in these kind of fixtures, you've got to back the attacking team. So I think this is probably one of the best fixtures to target for captaincy this week. Wherever you go for Mane or Salah, I think the obvious or the easy choice is to obviously back Salah. But if you've got both, honestly, the underlying numbers are pretty tempting to go towards Mane, especially in terms of goal threat. Look, if Salah gets a couple of penalties, that's just unlucky if you're a Mane owner or if you captain him. But if it's just a straight-up battle, open play, Mane could just about edge it. I really didn't think we'd be talking about Spurs so much at the start of the season, but we are. And they're looking pretty incredible right now, both Kane and Son as well. And I think a bit like Sheffield United versus Liverpool, you've probably got to back the attack here. Burnley, second best for expected goals conceded, although they have played a game less. But again, 3 of the 4 games they've played, Southampton, Newcastle, West Brom, right? We know Southampton have got Danny Ings, Newcastle have got Callum Wilson, etc. But they're not necessarily free-scoring teams. So right now, it's hard to really gauge just how good Burnley defence is. Ben Mee might not be back either. That's a bit of a blow for them too. And so I do think Spurs' attacking threat is probably better than Burnley's defensive threat in this case. And I do think, from a Spurs perspective, it's obviously going to be a little bit of a different type of game. One of the things people said against West Ham, for instance, was there's going to be no space in behind. There ended up being space in behind quite a bit. You've got to imagine that's not going to be the case for Burnley, but I don't actually think it's going to affect them a huge amount. I know they like to play on the counter, but I still think that's something that can be done. Kane dropping deep, potentially playing Son in behind. And if not, it means Kane probably won't have to play as deep. He'll be more in and around the box. We saw in the last match how devastating he can be from the edge of the area. Like, he's got such a shot in him, probably one of the best in the league. So I think this is still a good fixture for them right now. I know people will go through their record. Like, Kane's got a pretty good record against Burnley. I don't really pay too much attention to that. It's a different Kane right now. In fact, it's probably a better Kane that's played them in the last few games, which just makes it even better. Looking at their underlying numbers for Kane versus Son, because let's be honest, we're not considering anyone else from captain in this one. Kane has more than doubled Son's shots, like total shots, he's more than doubled, and he has 7 more in the box. He's played a few more minutes, but not a huge amount more. So 7 more shots in the box is pretty decent, because if you ask people where Kane is playing, they'll say he's playing as defensive midfielder, he's playing as a number 10, he's providing the service. Well, guess what? He's having a lot of shots, and a lot of them are coming in the box as well. His expected goal involvement data is higher as well. And he can assist and score. Like, he's already beaten his assist record. I'm sure he's going to get a few more before the season is out as well. So I wouldn't say that Son is a bad captain, but I do think a bit like last week, Kane is the better option. He's got penalties to fall back on as well. And I just think if you think Burnley are going to sit deep, I actually think that kind of helps Kane as much as it helps Son, because he's going to be able to get into the box a bit more. He's maybe not going to have to drop as deep to play Son in behind and stuff like that. So if I had both of them, I think Kane is the better captain. If you've only got Son, I still think he's a good captain, but probably not as much as something like Salah or Mane. Maybe even Sterling, but I do like Son still against Burnley. I think it's a good time to play them without Ben Mee. And yeah, it could be another double-digit haul for Kane and Son. So let's just take a quick look, quickly talk about some of the other matches that are being played this week. Basically, if I've not mentioned a match, I just think there's no options from that team. So like Man United versus Chelsea, I'm just not interested in captaining a player from either side. You just never know how those kind of games are going to go. Like Werner, okay, could do well against the Man United defence, yes, but the Man United defence just stopped Mbappe and Neymar doing their thing, and you can't tell me that Werner is a tougher option than that. So it'll depend how Man United line up, but I don't think there's a captain option for either of those games, right? Fernandes, of course, could get a penalty or whatever, but ultimately I wouldn't be captaining anyone in that fixture. Southampton versus Everton. So before today, I thought that looking like a great team to play for Everton. I wouldn't be captaining necessarily Danny Ings. I think Everton's a good defence. But for Everton, you could look at James Rodriguez or Calvert-Lewin, but James Rodriguez is probably going to be out now. So suddenly I think that just makes their whole team worse. Richarlison's going to be out as well because he's suspended. So I'm not liking the look of any Everton captains. This could be the week where Calvert-Lewin doesn't score. Can you imagine that? 6 weeks and this will be the first time he doesn't score. But ultimately, not captain options for me in this one. Wolves versus Newcastle United. Jimenez has been a big question mark this week. Are people going to sell him for Kane, etc.? I think you can make a case to keep Jimenez. But I mean, it's very rare I'm ever going to say he's a good captain option. Maybe if he plays West Brom at home or something like that. Newcastle are a poor defensive side. I do think this is a good fixture for Wolves. But again, they weren't massively convincing against Leeds. The goal came from a little bit of luck. And Jimenez is getting quite a few shots away, but the amount of times he double-digit hauls or scores more than one attack and return is not often enough for me to captain him. So it's a good fixture, and I do think you can make a case for keeping him, but I don't think I'd want to captain him. Brighton versus West Brom, like if you really wanted a punt, right, this would probably be my punt captain, right? You could say that Son is maybe a punt versus Salah, Mane, etc. But this is a proper punt, which is Morpay versus West Brom. Now, I have Morpay, frustrated with him against Crystal Palace, but his underlying numbers are good. He scored a few penalties. I think he scored 1, maybe 2 penalties already to top up his score a bit. But his non-penalty XG per 90 minutes, and he does play 90 minutes most games, or like 80 to 90 minutes, is 0.5. That's really good. That's what Calvert-Lewin was last year. It's what Danny Ings was last year. And West Brom are going to give up a lot of chances. And Brighton have been creating a good few chances, especially with Tariq Lamptey down that right-hand side. Just hasn't kind of gone for them in the last, in the game against Crystal Palace. They obviously drew in the end. And they've played some tougher fixtures as well. So this is definitely their easiest one of the season. And I think Morpay is an outside captain shot. If you want to punt, right, I'm not saying he's better than all the other players I mentioned, Aguero, Sterling, Salah, Mane, Kane, Son, etc. But as an outside punt, massive differential. I like Morpay. Trossard could be another option as well, but I just think Morpay with penalties is probably the one to go for. And then I've really put Arsenal and Leicester up there just to say I think they've been rubbish. I think Arsenal have looked pretty poor going forward. I think Leicester, the only person you're really looking at is Jamie Vardy. He's barely registering a shot in the first 5 game weeks so far. So I'm not interested in either of those two teams right now. And I don't know what's going to happen in that game, to be honest. I just think Arsenal, it feels like they're becoming a team that's maybe hard to beat. But in terms of free scoring, like with the players they got at their disposal, especially the likes of Aubameyang, I just don't really know what's going on there. So yeah, not interested in that one at all. So out of these, I mean, Jimenez could be an option, but not explosive enough for me. Brighton versus West Brom, I do like Morpay, but ultimately, it's down to the other ones I've already mentioned. For me, I don't own any Man City. I own Kane, Son, Salah. I'm looking at captaining Salah. I don't think Kane and Son have done very, very well, but I just prefer that home fixture to Sheffield United than playing Burnley away. So owning Kane and Son for me this week's probably enough. And I think Salah was always going to be my captain this week anyway, so I don't really see a reason to change it. I do really like Kane. Kane will be my vice captain. I would be slightly tempted to change it, but I think I've got to stick with Salah, right? He scored 6 goals himself so far this season. He also has penalties. And when it's that close, right, like last week it was close, and I went for Kane, but it was Everton. I knew that would be tricky. This week, they've both got equally kind of easy matches, and Salah is the midfielder, blah, 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 extra points for the goal, clean sheet, etc. So he's probably where I am siding now, who I think is the best captain option this week. So that's it for this one. Let me know in the comments below who your captain is this week, and also who you think the best captain is. Not necessarily the same 2 players. I don't have Sterling or Aguero, so I couldn't even pick them if I wanted to. But I just think unless we know De Bruyne is definitely back, I'd probably be more likely to go for Salah, Mane, Kane, Son anyway. So let me know in the comments below who yours is. Give it a like if you've enjoyed it. Really do appreciate it. Like I said, this is probably the format I'm going to keep for this, unless there's any massive feedback that says I should change it. But last week the feedback was quite positive. So this is what I'm going to do going forward. Whether it's on a Thursday or Friday, I'll just change probably every single week. But I will look to do one now every single week for the rest of the season if I can fit it in. Yeah, if you did enjoy the video, hit the like button. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Let's try and hit 125,000 by the end of the season. And lastly, I just want to do a shout out to all my patrons at patreon.com/letstalkfpl. There's a link in the description for that if you want to go and take a look and try it out. The payments come out on the 1st of the month, so if you wanted to sign up now, see what it's all about, you can always cancel before the 1st of November if it's not something you enjoy. And like I said, link in the description below. There's WhatsApp, Slack, depending on the tier you sign up to, early team reveals, that kind of thing as well. You can see everything listed in the link below. Just a quick shout out, like I said, to everyone that signed up. So everyone who does sign up gets on the Patreon's Legends wall. So thanks everyone for already signing up and supporting the channel. A big shout out to Hello ST, and I think that is, and Mikael T, who have also signed up since the last video or stream as well. So thanks very much to everyone that's already signed up. If you want to check it out, like I said a million times, link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll leave this video there. I will see you tomorrow for a deadline stream. Probably not a stream on Thursday night, but we'll see later on how I'm feeling. But definitely a deadline stream on Friday. I'll put that up in advance so you know what time that's going to be. And I'll catch you soon.